Our Old Testament reading will be Exodus. Our Old Testament reading will be Exodus 14. It's been a couple of weeks since we did the reading, so originally had that we would be on a couple of chapters ahead of this. So that'll be on page 71 in the Blue Book. And Yahweh spoke unto Moshe, saying, Speak to the children of Israel that they turn and camp before by Israel between Migdol and the sea opposite Baal Tespion, camp before it by the sea. It's actually Baal of the north. For Pharaoh shall say to the children of Israel, say of the children of Israel, they are entangled in the land, and the wilderness has closed them in. And I shall strengthen the heart of Pharaoh, and he shall pursue them, but I am to be esteemed through Pharaoh and over all his army, and the Mizrahites shall know that I am Yahweh, and they did so. And it was reported to the sovereign of Mizraim that the children had fled, and the heart of Pharaoh and his servants was turned against the people, and they said, Why have we done this, that we have left Israel go from serving us? So he made his chariots ready and took his people with him. And he took 600 choice chariots and all of the chariots of Mizraim with officers over all of them. And Yahweh strengthened the heart of Pharaoh, sovereign of Mizraim, and he pursued the children of Israel, but the children of Israel went out defiantly. And the Mizraimites pursued them, and all the horses and the chariots of Pharaoh, and his horsemen and his army, and overtook them, camping by the sea beside Pis-Hagroth and before Baal Tesphon. And when Pharaoh drew near, the children of Israel lifted up their eyes and saw the Mizrahites coming up after them, and they were greatly afraid. So the children of Israel cried out to Yahweh, and they said to Moshe, Did you take us away to die in the wilderness because there was no burial places in Mizraim? What is this that you have done to us to bring us out of Mizraim? Is this not the word that we spake to you in Mizraim, saying, Leave us alone and let us serve Mizrahites? For it would have been better for us to serve the Mizrahites than to die in the wilderness. And Moshe said to the people, Do not be afraid, stand still and see the deliverance of Yahweh, which he does for you today. For the Mizrahites whom you see today, you are never to see again. Yahweh does fight for you and keep you, and you keep silent. And Yahweh said to Moshe, Why do you cry to me? Speak to the children of Israel and let them go forward. And you lift up your rod and stretch out your hands over the sea and divide it, and let the children of Israel go on dry ground through the midst of the sea. And when I see, I am strengthening the hearts of the Mizrahites, and they shall follow them. And I am to be esteemed through Pharaoh and over all his enemy and his chariots and his horsemen. And the Mizrahites shall know that I am Yahweh when I am esteemed through Pharaoh, his chariots, and his horsemen. And the messenger of Elohim who went before the camp of Israel moved and went behind them. And the column of cloud went from before them and stood behind them, and camped between the camp. It came between the camp of the Mizrahites and the camp of Israel. And it was a cloud and the darkness, and it gave light by night, and the one did not come near to the other all night. And Moshe stretched out his hand over the sea, and Yahweh caused the sea to go back by a strong east wind all that night, and made the sea into a dry land, and the waters were divided. And the children of Israel went into the midst of the sea on dry ground, and the waters were a wall to them on their right and on their left. And the Mizrahites pursued and went after them in the midst of the sea, and all the horses of Pharaoh and his chariots and his horsemen. And it came to be in the morning when Yahweh looked down upon the army of the Mizrahites through the column of fire and cloud, he brought the army of the Mizrahites into confusion. And he took off their chariot wheels so that they drove them with difficulty. And the Mizrahites said, "Let us flee from the face of Israel, for Yahweh fights for them against the Mizrahites." Then Yahweh said to Moshe, "Stretch out your hand over the sea and let the waters come back upon the Mizrahites, on their chariots and on their horsemen." And Moshe stretched out his hand over the sea, and the sea returned to its usual flow at the break of day, with the Mizrahites fleeing into it. Thus Yahweh overthrew the Mizrahites in the midst of the sea, and the waters returned and covered the chariots and the horsemen and all the army of Pharaoh that came into the sea after them. Not even one was left of them. And the children of Israel walked on dry ground in the midst of the sea, and the waters were a wall to them on their right and on their left. Thus Yahweh saved Israel that day out of the hand of Mizraim, and Israel saw the Mizrahites dead on the seashore. And Israel saw the great work which Yahweh had done in Mizraim, and the people feared Yahweh and believed Yahweh and his servant Moshe. Hallelujah.
You did say 8, right?
Yes.
Right, Hebrews chapter 8. Now the summary of what we are saying is, we have such a high priest who is seated at the right hand of the throne of the greatness in the heavens, and who serves in a set-apart place in the true tent which Yahweh set up, and not man. For every high priest is appointed to offer both gifts and slaughters. So it was also necessary for this one to have somewhat to offer. For if indeed he were on earth, he would not be a priest, since there are priests who offer the gifts according to the Torah, who serve a copy and a shadow of the heavenly. As Moshe was warned when he was about to make the tent, for he said, "See that you make all according to the pattern shown you on the mountain." But now he has obtained a more excellent service, inasmuch as he is also mediator of a better covenant, which was constituted on better promises. For if that first covenant had been faultless, then no place would have been sought for a second. For finding fault with them, he says, "See, the days are coming, says Yahweh, when I shall conclude with the house of Israel and with the house of Yehudah a renewed covenant, not according to the covenant that I made with their fathers in the day when I took them by the hand to lead them out of the land of Mitzrayim, because they did not continue in my covenant, and I disregarded them, says Yahweh. Because this is the covenant that I shall make with the house of Israel after those days, says Yahweh, giving my laws into their mind, and I shall write them on their hearts, and I shall be their Elohim, and they shall be my people. And they shall by no means teach each other his neighbor, and each one his brother, saying, Know Yahweh, because they shall all know me, from the least of them to the greatest of them. Because I shall forgive their unrighteousness, and their sins, and their lawlessness. I shall no longer remember. By saying renewed, he has made the first old. Now what becomes old and growing aged is near disappearing.
I forgot my glasses, so I probably won't be able to hear very well. Oh, everybody's surviving all the weather, I guess. Looks like it. Just a hair. I got to get it just the right distance or I can't see it. I was going through a few things and doing a lot of praying and looking for something to bring today. And I got double vision. Thank you, though. And one of the things that come to mind, as children of Yahweh and Yeshua, Messiah, what is our desire? Did anybody want to throw something out there? Howard?
We have one purpose, and that's to worship our Elohim.
Hallelujah.
That's the only worth we have on this earth, is to worship Him.
Yes.
Otherwise, sorry, everybody.
Hallelujah. Anybody? David?
Be kind of worthy to be in that kingdom.
Yeah. Desire to be in the kingdom. Anybody else? Hey. Well, then, wondered, as children of Yahweh and Yeshua Messiah, what is our sacrifice? There's no longer animal sacrifices, but how do we sacrifice?
Pray.
Our lips.
Praise, yep, and bulls of our lips. Any other ways?
Service.
Our service, a lot of times we sacrifice by giving up things that we used to enjoy. That's a type of sacrifice. And then the third question is, where do we find our joy? In Yeshua? Yahweh? Lisa? The world to come? Hallelujah. Okay. Good. David? With the brethren? Yeah. Those are all good things. Yep. Okay. Just some questions. Try to get. We'll start in Hosea 6 and verse 1, page 603. Yep, Hosea 6. That's something that came to me this past couple of weeks or while we've been out. A lot of times, we may sacrifice things that we don't have to. And and sometimes the sacrifice may even be not what Yahweh has in mind. Are you ready? There. Hosea 6, verse 1. Yeah. Come and let us turn back to Yahweh, for He is torn, but He does heal us. He is stricken, but He binds us up. After 2 days He shall revive us. On the third day He shall raise us up, so that we live before Him. So let us pursue to know Yahweh. His going forth is as certain as the morning, and He comes to us like the rain, like the latter rain watering the earth. Ephraim, what would I do with you? Yehuda, what would I do with you? For your loving commitment is like a morning cloud, and like the early dew it goes away. Therefore I have hewn them by the prophets. I have killed them by the words of my mouth, and my right rulings break forth as a light. For I delight in loving commitment and not slaughtering, and in the knowledge of Elohim more than ascending offerings. So our right rulings and our knowledge of Elohim is more important than our sacrifices. And that's kind of what came to me. As earlier on, I was trying to give up everything, things I didn't need to give up. And it kind of hits that way, you know. I mean, I know even some people I walked away from that I shouldn't have. You know, we can do that because, the thinking, well, they're going to lead me down the wrong path, or they're going to, and so I kind of counted that as part of my sacrifice. I will stay away from these people and not be around these people, or I will, kind of go on from them. And, that's not the sacrifice he wanted. That was not his will. When I first, not long after I was baptized, I made a declare that, 40 hours a week minimum are yours, Yahweh. That wasn't his will. That was my sacrifice to him, but that wasn't my will. I had other things to do. I had other things to do for him. And so I had to kind of learn that, he likes sacrifice. He loves sacrifice. He loves when we give up things for him, but as long as it's within his will. And the next one is in 1 Samuel 15, page 295. Kind of did them page things for myself. It makes it a little easier for me. Everybody knows this story, but I think it really reiterates the importance of Yahweh's will over our will, regardless of what it may be. We may have the very greatest of intentions, but if it's not Yahweh's will, then it's of no account. I mean, we may think we're doing right, and sometimes we have to learn that lesson. We don't always. I know myself. I got to learn it every day. It seems like, if it's bad memory, hard-headed, little both. But buddy, there. And Samuel said to Shaul, Yahweh sent me to anoint you sovereign over his people, over Israel, and now listen to the voice of the words of Yahweh. Thus said Yahweh of hosts, I shall punish Amalek for what he did to Israel, how he set himself against him on the way, and when he came up from Mitzrayim. Now go, and you shall strike Amalek, and put under the ban all that he has, and you shall not spare them, and put to death from man to woman, from infant to nursing child, and from ox to sheep, from camel to donkey. Then Shaul summoned the people and mustered them in Telaim, 200,000 foot soldiers and 10,000 men of Judah. And Shaul came to the city of Amalek and lay in wait in the wadi. And Shaul said to the Canaanites, Go, turn aside, come down from among the Amalekites, lest I destroy you with them. For you did show loving commitment to all the children of Israel when they came up from Mitzrayim, out of Mitzrayim. So the Canaanites turned aside from the midst of the Amalekites. And Shaul struck the Amalekites from Hawilah all the way to Shur, which is before Mitzrayim. And he caught Agag, sovereign of the Amalekites, alive, and put under the ban all the people with the edge of the sword. But Shaul and the people spared Agag and the best of the sheep, and the cattle, and the fatlings, and the lambs, and all that was good, and would not put them under the ban. But all goods despised and worthless they put under the ban. And the word of Yahweh came to Samuel, saying, I am grieved that I have set up Shaul as sovereign, for he has turned back from following me, and has not performed my words. And it displeased Samuel, and he cried to Yahweh all night. And Samuel rose early in the morning to meet Shaul, and it was told to Samuel, saying, Saul went to Carmel, and see, he set up a monument for himself, then turned and passed over, and went down to Gilgal. And Samuel said to Saul, and Saul said to him, or Samuel came to Saul, and Saul said to him, Blessed are you of Yahweh. I have performed the word of Yahweh. But Samuel said, What then is this bleating of the sheep in my ears and the lowing of the cattle which I hear? And Saul said, They have brought from Amalek, because the people spared the best of the sheep and the cattle to slaughter to Yahweh your Elohim, and the rest we have put under the ban. And Samuel said to Saul, Wait, and let me declare to you what Yahweh said to me last night. And he said to him, Speak. And Samuel said, Though you were little in your own eyes, were you not head of the tribes of Israel? And did not Yahweh anoint you sovereign over Israel? And Yahweh sent you on the way and said, Go, and you shall put under the ban the sinners, the Amalekites, and fight against them until they are consumed. And why did you not obey the voice of Yahweh, but swooped down on the spoil and did evil in the eyes of Yahweh? And Saul said to Samuel, I did obey the voice of Yahweh, and I went on the way on which Yahweh sent me, and brought back Agag, sovereign of the Amalek, and I put Amalek under the ban. Sorry, a little bit of a tongue twister there. But the people took the spoil of the sheep and cattle, and best of that which should have been put under the ban, to slaughter to Yahweh your Elohim in Gilgal. Then Samuel said, Does Yahweh delight in ascending offerings and slaughter offerings, as in obeying the voice of Yahweh? Look, to obey is better than a slaughtering. To heed is better than the fat of rams. For rebellion is as the sin of divination, and stubbornness is as wickedness and idolatry. Because you have rejected the word of Yahweh, he also does reject you as sovereign. And Saul said to Samuel, I have sinned, for I have transgressed the mouth of Yahweh, and your words, because I feared the people and listened to their voice. And now, please pardon my sin and return with me, and let me bow myself to Yahweh. But Samuel said to Saul, I do not return with you, for you have rejected the word of Yahweh, and Yahweh does reject you from being sovereign over Israel. And as Samuel turned around to go away, Saul took a hold of the edge of his robe and tore it. And Samuel said to him, Yahweh has torn the reign of Israel from you today, and has given it to a neighbor of yours better than you. Moreover, the eminence of Israel does not lie nor relent, for he is not a man that he should relent. Then he said, I have sinned, but esteem me now, please, before the elders of my people and before Israel, and return with me, and I shall bow myself to Yahweh your Elohim. And Samuel turned back after Saul, and Saul bowed himself to Yahweh. And Samuel said, Bring Agag, sovereign of the Amalekites, here to me. So Agag came to him delightedly, and Agag said, Truly, the bitterness of death has turned aside. And Samuel said, As your sword bereaved women, let your mother be bereaved among women too. Samuel then hewed Agag to pieces before Yahweh in Gilgal. And Samuel went to Ramah, while Saul went up to the house at Gibeah of Saul. And Samuel did not see Saul again until the day of his death, for Samuel mourned for Saul, and Yahweh was grieved that he had made Saul to reign over Israel. You know, a lot of people will say, well, you know, he just came up with this idea that they were going to sacrifice him later, but it doesn't really say. It's very possible. But, you know, to take the very best to give to sacrifice to Yahweh wasn't what he asked for. That wasn't his will. And it cost Saul his rulership. You know, so that's how much more importance obedience has over sacrifice, which is kind of the point of most of this. Okay. Okay. You know, if whenever we make a promise or a declaration to Yahweh, if it's against His will, it's akin to disobedience, even though it may go along with Torah, and we may see nothing else wrong with it. You know, if we make that promise, and then because we have no way to see the future, and then down the road we find out that we were wrong, then that's just akin to obedience. It's saying, more or less, it's saying, well, here's what I'm going to do, whether you like it or not, which not a good idea when it comes to Yahweh. Okay. And next, let's go to Proverbs 21, page 748. I usually do a lot of Brit Hadashah, but this one's pretty much all in the Tanakh, so. 21. I think this kind of speaks to that point too. The sovereign's heart is as channels of water in the hand of Yahweh. He turns it wherever he wishes. All a man's ways are right in his own eyes, but Yahweh weighs the hearts. To do righteousness and right ruling is more acceptable to Yahweh than a slaughtering or a sacrifice. Okay. A haughty look, a proud heart, the lamp of the wrong or sin. The plans of the hard worker lead only to plenty, but all rash haste only to poverty. Gaining treasures by a lying tongue is a fleeting vapor heading for death. The spoil of the wrong catches them because they refuse to do right ruling. You know, so this goes again to the importance of right ruling, Yahweh's will. You know, and you know, we need to really follow that will. We know that His will for us is for us to do right ruling with all we deal with. And it's easy to do little things that, you know, I know lately myself with this selling one house and trying to buy another one, you get them little temptations of trying to make something seem a little better than it actually is, or on the other side, trying to make something seem a little worse than it actually is. And, you know, that's the old me. But it's still, you know, if you don't watch what you're doing, it can really sneak out on you. And so that's kind of wanted to reiterate the importance of right ruling, of obedience. And the next one is Jeremiah 7. Oh, I didn't write down the page number. Whoever gets there first, if you would, holler out the page number. Page 474 in the blue book. Right? The word that came to Yirmiyahu from Yahweh, saying, Stand in the gate of the house of Yahweh, and you shall proclaim there this word, and shall say, Hear the word of Yahweh, all you of Yehuda, who enter in at these gates to bow before Yahweh. Thus said Yahweh of hosts, the Elohim of Israel, make your ways and your deeds good, then I let you dwell in this place. Do not trust in these false words, saying, this is the heckle of Yahweh, the heckle of Yahweh, the heckle of Yahweh. For if you truly make your ways and your deeds good, if you truly do right ruling between a man and his neighbor, if you do not oppress the stranger, the fatherless, and the widow, and do not shed innocent blood in this place, or walk after other mighty ones on your own evil, then I shall let you dwell in this place, in the land that I gave you to your fathers forever and ever. See, you are trusting in false words which do not profit, stealing, murdering, and committing adultery, and swearing falsely, and burning incense to Baal, and walking after other mighty ones you have not known. And you came and stood before me in this house which is called by my name, and said, we have been delivered in order to do all of these abominations. Has this house which is called by my name become a den of robbers in your eyes? Look, even I myself, have seen it, declares Yahweh. But go now to my place in Shiloh, where I set my name at the first, and see what I did to it because of the evil of the people of Israel. And know, because you have done all these works, declares Yahweh, and I spoke to you, rising up early and speaking, but you did not hear, and I called you, but you did not answer. I shall also do this house which is called by my name, in which you trust, and to this place which I gave to you and your fathers, as I did to Shiloh. And I shall cast you out of my presence, as I have cast out all your brothers and the seed of Ephraim. And you do not pray for this people, nor lift up a cry or prayer for them, nor make intercession for me, to me, for I do not hear you. Do you not see what they are doing in the cities of Yehuda and in the streets of Jerusalem? The children are gathering wood, the fathers are lighting the fire, and the women are kneading their dough to make cakes for the sovereigns of the heavens, and to pour out drink offerings to other mighty ones to provoke me. Is it me they are provoking, declares Yahweh? Is it not themselves unto the shame of their own faces? Therefore, thus said the Master Yahweh, see, my displeasure and my wrath is poured out on this place, on man and on beast, and on the trees of the field, and on the fruit of the ground, and it shall burn and not be quenched. Thus said Yahweh of hosts, the Elohim of Israel, add your ascending offerings to your slaughterings, and eat meat. For I did not speak to your fathers or command them in the day that I brought them out of the land of Mitzrayim about matters of ascending offerings or slaughterings. But this word I did command them, saying, obey my voice, and I shall be your Elohim, and you be my people, and walk in all the ways that I have commanded you, so that it be well with you. But they did not obey or incline their ear, but walked in the counsels in their stubbornness of the evil heart, and went backwards and not forward. From the day that our fathers came out of the land of Mitzrayim until this day, I have even sent to you all my servants, the prophets, daily rising up early and sending them. But they did not obey me or incline their ear, but stiffened their neck. They did evil more than their fathers. And you shall speak all these words to them, though they do not listen to you, and you shall also call to them, though they do not answer you. But you shall say to them, this is a nation that did not obey the voice of Yahweh their Elohim, nor did they accept instruction. Truth has perished and has been cut off from their mouth. Cut off your hair and throw it away, and take up a lamentation on the bare heights of Yahweh. For Yahweh has rejected and forsaken the generation of his wrath. For the children of Yehuda have done what is evil in my eyes, declares Yahweh. They have set their abominations in the house which is called by my name to defile it, and they have built the high places of Topheth, which is in the valley of the son of Hinnom, to burn their sons and their daughters in the fire, which I did not command, nor did it come into my heart. Therefore, see, the days are coming, declares Yahweh, when it shall no longer be called Topheth, or the valley of the son of Hinnom, but the valley of slaughter, for they shall bury in Topheth until no room is left. And the corpses of this people shall be food for the birds of the heavens and for the beasts of the earth, with none to frighten them away. And in the cities of Yehuda and in the streets of Jerusalem, I shall make to cease the voice of rejoicing and the voice of gladness, and the voice of the bridegroom and the voice of the bride, for the land shall become a waste. Now, that's not a good warning for obeying the voice of Yahweh and walking in His will. And and it's important that, we be well rooted in the Word. I mean, sometimes we need to hear things like this to kind of get our attention. And when I read it, it hit me like a hammer. A sin against Yahweh is a sin against Yahweh. No matter how grievous, no matter how minuscule, sin is sin. And we all have to deal with it. We all have to fight against it. And, but we've been given an opportunity that these people didn't have. When they did, give their sacrifice, which I'm aligning sacrifice of animals to our sacrifices, but in a way they're a lot alike. Because we give up our sacrifices trying to do our best for Yahweh. Whenever we claim a sacrifice, when we give up something, when we don't do something that we want because we feel that it's against Yahweh, it's a lot like them. They were giving up this animal. They were giving up the life of this animal that they raised to appease Yahweh for their sins. And a lot of times, that's what we do. We try, we do something wrong, so we give up something else. And that's not always the way we need to do it. We need to just beg His forgiveness and seek His face and seek His will. Because it's His will that matters. Not what we think is right, what He claims, what He says is right. And we find that in His Word. And I kind of goes into the thing like you think of a tree. It's got to have good, strong roots. Through the ice and then through other storms. You see we have a bad case, especially in this part of the country. The roots aren't able to get deep because they get down to the solid rock and they're shallow. And once they get big enough and catch a big enough wind, they just fall over. Like those trees, our roots have to be well embedded within the Word, within Yahweh's Word, and within His will. But yet, we still have to have a little give to us. We still have, we have to be where He can guide us to where He wants us to do, to keep us within His will. And I know that myself, of course, I keep coming back to myself, but as I've said before, that's the only person I'm around all the time. So I use myself for an example and pray that through my faults, somebody else will find strength. But, I do a lot of, I think a lot because I don't have somebody around to talk to. So, and when I think a lot, I get thoughts in my head. Sometimes they're not that right. Sometimes they're okay. Sometimes they're, it's a dangerous thing sometimes. But, and I'll get these ideas and I'll think, well, this is the way, it should be. And I'll allow myself to concentrate on that. And sometimes instead of taking it to the Word. And then later on, I'll find in the Word where the thought was wrong. And, without having that good foundation in the word and that good, and having them roots entangled all throughout the word, through all of it, it's easy for us to get blown over or blown out of course. You know, it's kind of like you hear talks about them being tossed around by the waves. It's easy to get pushed around by every little thing we see or hear, especially with YouTube like it is. I mean, if you want to believe something, just go in there and look. Eventually, you'll find somebody agree with you. Guaranteed. I mean, there's all kinds on there, and just because they agree with me, I've learned that don't make them right. That happens sometimes, but I learn from it, and that's what it's about. We've got to learn from it. But and then we don't want to be like that ship tossed at sea. We got to anchor in the word. We got to anchor tight. But if the fish ain't biting and Yahweh sends us some other direction, we got to be able to pull up our anchor and move to that direction. We got to stay within His will. Which I hope that made some sense. It did when I wrote it down anyway. And it kind of brings me to the important part. The title of this one was kind of thinking of a title, and it's Obedience, Sacrifice, and Joy. And when we think of where's our joy, we should have joy in knowing that we're obedient to our Father. That should bring us joy. And if we concentrate on that obedience, and if we concentrate on, like I say, if we concentrate on His word, we may not always know whether the direction we're being sent is of Yahweh or not. That's possible. But for me, I go by, and it may not be right for everyone, but for me, if it's of the word, Yahweh will never do anything against His word. He is the same yesterday, today, tomorrow, a bazillion years from now. He ain't going to change a bit. And so His word is just as true now as it ever was. And if I feel led to do something and it feels like it's within His word, if I can't find anything in Scripture against it, and I pray about it, and I can't, find that it's doing harm, then I try to do it and pray that I'm not wrong. I always pray, Yahweh, if this is your will, make it come to pass. If it's not, whatever I do, make sure it don't happen. That way, I kind of covering myself. But the important part of it is, to me, is the joy of it. I mean, I've never known so much joy since I've come into this. I've been miserable, bitter, and everything else for so many years. I didn't know what joy was. And it's a very important part of it. If we can't have joy in what we're doing here, if we can't have joy in being obedient and in following Him, then we might need to rethink something, because it should bring joy. When I first started keeping Sabbath, I didn't have a lot of joy in it, because only thing I could think of all day long was all these other things that I needed to do, that needed to be done, that I needed to get done, and I'm sure everybody went through that at one time or another. And so I was missing out on the joy part. I was letting it take away my joy. Not that I stopped thinking about things that needed to be done, but now I think, well, instead of letting them steal my joy, I say, well, I'm joyous. I don't have to do them today. I can rest. And I think it's very important. There's nothing wrong with sacrificing things for Yahweh. I think that's a great thing. But like I said, the main part of this is that, just make sure what we sacrifice is His will, is within His will, not just ours. it's easy to sacrifice something that we really don't want anyways, and to claim it as being for Yahweh. It's easy to do. I've done it. And, and that's how we learn. We can't let those things, when we do those things, we just need to learn from them and try to remember them. And unless you're like me and you got to go through it 100 dozen times to remember it, but I hope not, because it makes it a lot easier if you can remember the first time and then you don't have to. But maybe. Well, that's pretty much all I got. I pray that somebody got something out of it. Howard, did you have anybody? Well, I guess anybody got anything they want to say or add, or yeah, I know Lisa. Okay, Lisa.
David looks at me and I noticed, and I have an issue with Shaul, King Shaul. It's like everything Yahweh told him to do, variated from it just ever so slightly.
Yeah.
I thought I was better. And there's 3 places in there when he was talking that he said, your element.
Yeah.
Yahweh, your element.
Mm.
He didn't say it.
Yeah.
And I was respectful when somebody asked out of respect.
Yeah. Hallelujah. Yes.
How much more for Yahweh? Yahweh is very exact. He wants us to be exact. Sloppy.
Mm-hmm.
Human beings are sloppy.
Yes.
So we wrote it, correctly. We should do exactly what God says.
Hallelujah. Yes. Yeah. I thought I had it in there, but I guess I missed it. But there was one more deal I was going to read, but it was about when they had returned and rebuilt the temple, and they were trying to do the Pesach, but they missed the date. So they had to do it a month later, and not everybody showed up, at the first time. So they had to do it a month later, and Yahweh still blessed it. Because even though it wasn't what he told them to do exactly, it was still within his will. But as long as we stay within his will, which doesn't happen very often, and it's not that Yahweh changed his mind. It's not that he changed anything. He still wants us to observe it on the 14th day of the first month instead of the second month, if we possibly can. But,
Back out of captivity.
uh,
That's the spot where they were coming back out.
yeah, yeah, when they came back out of captivity. Yeah, David?
You say that. Only say how we get you saved.
Yeah,
Because it's that important.
yeah.
Because without that, you can't do the
Mm-hmm.
really get how the structure set.
Yeah.
But you were that was one
Yeah.
thing I thought about was Saul did, he thought that he could take the best Yahweh's enemies. I would accept them as second.
Mm-hmm.
Never take the best, but is Yahweh. Think that Yahweh is going
Yeah, it was.
not in this lifetime. It'll
No.
never happen. It won't happen in the other. So think about those things. You can just apply that to your own life about the things that Yahweh is not pleasing. You say, well, I'm gonna give it to him or whatever, but don't do that. It's not going to be good. Yahweh allowed individuals to be affected by Nebuchadnezzar because they would not.
Yeah.
They would not. He said, if you have thoroughly amend your ways, if you oppress not the strangers, the fatherless, the widows, shed not innocent blood in place. Right ruling, justice, mercy, only Yahweh will not
Yeah.
allow. If you
Stand
don't
for
do
it,
it,
yeah.
he won't stand for it. He's gonna remove you out of the way, remove you out of the way. It is a cornerstone. Yes.
Yes.
And we talked about stones in Missouri not allowing deep roots. Made me think about our heart.
Yeah.
It takes away our stony hearts. Because the word can't take root, your heart is.
No. No. That's true. That's a good point. You know, roots can't grow on stone, so if you carry that heart of stone with you, then the roots aren't going to dig in.
That's why he said,
Kind of goes back to one of my favorite subjects. You know, you got to love one another. You got to love your neighbor. You got to love Yahweh with everything you have.
how you have right roots. You don't shed any
Yes.
blood. You don't feel falsely with people. You don't bear false witness. You don't.
Yes. Connie?
Just commenting on what Lisa mentioned, Yahweh's very exact.
Yes.
On how we are. That's why that path is so narrow
Yeah.
and so many fall off of that narrow path.
Mhm.
And no matter, we're not perfect. You know, and we go to him in repentance. There are things, but we stay on that narrow.
Yes. Yeah, you know, and that was kind of the point I was trying to get across, you know, is how much more important obedience is than sacrifice. We can sacrifice everything, but if we're not obedient in it, it's of no account. It's a waste of time. Yeah, you know. Yeah. Okay, anybody else? I guess that's pretty much all I got. I thank y'all for listening, putting up with me.
There's always